Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only. Due to the nature of the topic, any and all links will be removed from the description. I will not take responsibility for any actions that Nintendo can and will take against you, including but not limited to account bans, IP blocks, being blocked from the eShop, etc. Jailbreaking itself is not illegal, classified under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. There will also be no explanations of dumping game carts or illegally obtaining software. Happy jailbreaking. Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Ghost, and today I'm going to show you how you can jailbreak your Nintendo Switch. Now, here's also the thing to take into consideration when you start jailbreaking any console is you do run the risk of having your console banned. With that's anytime you start messing with any kind of firmware or you start changing any kind of information that's on the system itself, you run the risk of being banned from the console manufacturer. So if you guys want to find out how to hack your Switch, then just stick around and I'll show you guys that right after this quick little plug from our partner, Juju Energy, a low-calorie, sugar-free, professional-grade gaming formula that's packed with energy and nootropics for a superior performance. You just need to mix 1 scoop with 10 to 12 ounces of water for a powerful mental performance and energy boost. Juju's also packed with vitamins and minerals to increase your reaction times and keep you focused, as well as it has an ingredient called Ludamax 2020 that supports eye health and combats blue light strain. Check it out on the website. I'll leave all the details below, as well as if you use code GHOSTY10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off your entire order. Now back to the video. First things first, you are going to need a couple of things. You are going to need your Switch. It is going to have to be a model that is not patched, and I'll show you guys how to find out whether yours is patched or not later on within the video. So you need your Switch. You're going to need the SD card for your Switch that needs to be roughly 64 gigs or more. I'll leave links in the description to anything and everything that you guys are going to need. You're also going to need the adapter if your actual micro SD card or your PC doesn't have the ability to take these standard micro SD cards. So you'll need SD card adapter and also something to be able to plug it in to your system. And that pretty much sums it up, except you need one last thing, and that is a RCM Jig. Now with this jig, essentially what it does is it allows you to send your Switch into RCM mode, also known as recovery mode, and that allows you to be able to inject the payloads that are going to be necessary for you to set this whole thing up. So we're going to switch it over to the PC side. I'm going to show you guys what it's going to kind of look like and everything else, and we'll go from there. All right. So now we're back over at the PC side of things, and there's this website. It's super simple. It's called ismyswitchpatch.com. Basically what you're going to do is right on, and I'm going to cover most of mine up, right on the bottom of the Switch, and I know you guys can't even see that. There is a barcode. Next to that, right underneath that barcode, there is a line of numbers. So on the website, you're just going to go find your prefix, which mine happens to be that, and punch in the serial digits for your Switch, at least the first 6. So I'm just going to punch in, and there we go. So that goes ahead and tells you right there that this Switch in particular is not patched. If, however, you wind up using a separate Switch, we'll take, for instance, my Animal Crossing one, we'll use it as an example. If you look and your prefix isn't even listed, your Switch is patched. Sadly, there's nothing you can do. At least as far as this tutorial is concerned. There may be, further advancements later down the road and more that we're able to do at that point. But currently, the way it stands right now, if you do not have a switch that starts with those prefixes, there's sadly nothing I can do. Now, you guys might wind up having one that pops up and it says that it's possibly patched. That's kind of one of those like 50-50 gray areas, because at one point Nintendo was releasing consoles within a certain serial code area that was patched and was not patched. So there's kind of a gray area. But if yours comes back, it's 100%, you get the green bar and it says that your console's not patched. Congratulations, you guys can continue on with this, and you can install Homebrew and custom firmware and stuff like that on your Switch. So I'm gonna go ahead and have you guys pretty much get most of the PC stuff out of the way. So then we can just switch it over and primarily just use the Switch itself. All right, so now that we found out that your Switch isn't patched, there's going to be a website called sdsetup.com. I'll leave links to everything in the description. This is pretty honestly standard, straightforward part. You're going to come down here where it says select a console. You only have one option. Click on Nintendo Switch, and it's going to give you like some pre-configured bundles. The best thing that you could do on this one, at least for this tutorial, just to kind of follow along, come right here where it says recommended defaults. Hit select on that. It's going to go through. It's going to give you your nice little custom firmware, your overlays, some modules, a little bit of homebrew stuff that you can use as well, lockpick, so that we can actually back up the serial keys and everything else for our Switch, just in case down the road or anything happens, it bricks, you can revert the system back and be a-okay. So make sure you select your recommended defaults. Come down here where it says download your zip. Click on that. Wait for it to build your zip file and it'll start downloading. And now another thing that you're going to need is you're also going to need something that you can actually inject the payloads with. This is where the Tegra RCM GUI comes in handy. I'll also leave the link to this down below. So you're just going to come down and grab the portable zip. You just click on it, wait for it to download, and then I'll see you guys at the desktop. Awesome. So now we're here. We've got both of our downloads. All we got to do, at least in this instance, for me, because I have WinRAR, I can just I can drag and drop, and I actually already had Tegra installed. I just re-downloaded it for you guys. So that's why it gave me the prompt to replace some files. And then we'll go into our SD setup. And this is going to be where you're going to have two different folders, right? So you're going to have one for SD, and then you'll have one that's payloads. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your SD, you're going to move it off to the side, and you take your payloads one and also move it off to the side. So we're going to keep those two folders completely separate. We don't want to actually put them inside of each other, put both of them in one folder, or anything like that. The payloads are what we're going to wind up using to inject into the Switch itself, instead of actually putting the SD cards and stuff like that. So when you open the SD card one, you're going to have like your actual custom firmware, the bootloaders and everything else. And let me actually grab the SD card out of my Switch. All right, so we've got the SD card for our Switch opened up, and you guys will see something like this little Nintendo folder here. Go ahead and take this folder and back it up. This essentially has, you know, all of your games that you've downloaded, everything else. Back it up onto like your desktop. You can put it in a different folder somewhere. You can do whatever you need to with it and just kind of leave it there for now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up this SD folder. And this is pretty simple at this point. Highlight everything, copy it over. So now that we've got all of that copied over, you know, this super simple part. We're going to take this, we're going to eject the actual SD card, and we're going to put it into the switch, and I'm going to show you guys how to get into RCM mode and start launching Homebrew and things like that. So I'll see you guys over on the actual switch side. All right, guys, so now that we're over at the switch side of things, there is one thing that I forgot that you will have to get, and it is a USB type C to USB type A. So you can essentially plug your switch into your PC. Pretty much every single cell phone has come with one of these types of cables, at least any of the new cell phones, unless you're on Apple, and you can literally pick these up for dirt cheap. Just make sure you grab one of these types of cables. So we'll go ahead and we'll take the SD card that we pulled out of the PC just a minute ago and put it in. Make sure that is fully inserted. So we actually got the error that our micro SD card cannot be used. It needs to be reformatted. If that happens to be the case, this is also why you backed up that Nintendo folder. Or if your Switch didn't have a Nintendo folder on it and you haven't used an SD card with this Switch before, you are going to have to format it. So those previous steps, kind of for nothing, sadly. So we'll just hit continue, let it do its thing, let it format really quick. And I think it primarily comes down to the Switch operates off of possibly FAT32 instead of exFAT, which this is formatted under exFAT. At least that SD card was. I'm gonna have to take it, plug it back into the PC really quick, just redo those first steps where it's taking that contents of that SD folder and copy and pasting it over onto the SD, ejecting it and putting it back in the Switch. So I'll be right back. So now that I've done that, I've put all of those folders right back on. Like I said, it's a quick, simple copy and paste. Just move them over. The only thing that we want to make sure is we want to make sure that our Switch is off. So I'm gonna hit the home button really quick just to make sure. So it is. This is where we need our nice little RCM Jig, which is this nice little, if I can get it open. I'm also opening it from the wrong side. It's this little jig that fits into the Joy-Con rail that has two prongs on it. And I'll try to see. So two prongs that bridge the 10th pad and a ground pad. In this case, it happens to be pad 10 and pad 1. And this is what allows for the Switch itself to go into RCM mode. So with the Switch off, sorry if I keep looking over here, guys. That's where the actual monitor for the camera is. So we'll take that, slide it in, make sure it's slid all the way down and bridged very nicely here. Now to boot into RCM mode, simply hold volume up and hit the power button. If you see the Nintendo logo, you did it wrong. Or your Switch isn't patched, things like that. Now, the Tegra software, and I'm going to have it recorded from both ends so you guys will be able to see what it actually looks at. That Tegra software that you guys downloaded earlier, we're going to go ahead and open that up. So I'll switch over to the PC really quick so you guys can see what happens when it detects that your Switch is in RCM mode and when it's not. So we're back over at the PC and we're looking for this Tegra RCM GUI.exe file. So we'll go ahead, we'll boot that up. And for me, it's showing that the previous payload that I used. But first thing, when you first boot this up, make sure you come over to settings and you hit install driver. So you're going to want this driver installed on your PC and up and running before you do anything else. So settings, install driver, make sure you do that and get it installed. And then next thing is we're going to want to come right here, click on this little folder. Now for me, it's going to be on the desktop. So we would go to where we had our payloads, double click on that, and we want this Hecate folder or this .bin file. So double click on that to load it to be injected into the actual switch itself. Now with this, if you can see that it doesn't say that it's registered, there is no RCM. That's because I haven't plugged the switch in. So once I plug the switch in, you guys should see that it changes to RCM OK or OK RCM. It'll go green and it'll let you know. There you go. So now that the switch is plugged in, it's also in RCM mode. We can come over here and we can click on inject payload. And once we click inject payload, we'll get something that looks a little bit like this on our switch. So now I'm about to click inject payload. And this is what you're met with. So at this point, it's not really, you know, so much of worrying about setting the date and time. And on a technicality, you're done. That's all you had to do to actually get your switch jailbroken in essence. But now what we're going to do is we are going to do a little bit of like setup and make sure that we get the bare minimum possibility of your switch getting banned online. So essentially at this point right now, you're done. You already have your entire thing is set up. You are in custom firmware. But what we want to do is we want to kind of back everything up, make sure that we have copies of everything. So we're going to want to come up here to where it says tools. And we're going to go to where it says the backup eMMC. And we're going to eMMC boot 0 and boot 1. So that took 1 second and it backed all of that up. At this point, we're going to hit close, close. You do not have to exit. We're going to go back to the home. You don't have to exit the actual Hecate launcher, but go ahead, remove your SD card. And it's going to give you a little bit of a SD card was removed. It'll like resume, you know, functions whenever it's reinstalled. So take your SD card, plug it back into your PC. You're going to be doing a lot of back and forth between your PC, to be completely honest. We're going to switch back over to our PC camera and take a look really quick. And now you should have a folder that says backup. This is going to be your switch backup, and we're going to make a second folder here in a minute. So just find a place that you are going to want to safely keep this. I already have one. So for me, I'm just going to delete this folder. For you guys, keep it. Make a separate folder somewhere. Put this folder in it. Put the next folder that we're going to create in that as well. Also, you might want to think about putting it on like your Google Drive or something like that. Put it on a separate hard drive somewhere in case one fails. This is going to be the way that if your switch in the future or anything like that happens to brick, this is going to be what allows you to bring it back to life. So like I said, for me, I'm just going to delete this folder because I already have a backup of all of my keys of everything that's on my switch. And then we're going to eject this and then put it back into the switch, and I'll show you guys what else to do from there. All right, so now we're back over at our switch. We can hit cancel on that after we put the SD card back in and come back over to tools. This is where we're going to go back up to the backup eMMC, and now we want the raw GPP. We're gonna hit that. Now this part's gonna take a minute. There's not too much you can really do about that. Make sure you do get a quality micro SD card. Don't get like these terrible micro SD cards from some no-name company. They're terrible. They don't do what they one are supposed to do, and two, I've used it before. I actually just showed you the one that I used, and every time I attempted this, it failed. So get a good quality name brand micro SD card so that you can have pretty much some stability and actual speed. So I'm gonna speed through this and we'll come back whenever it's done. All right, guys, now that that is done, it took 10.5 minutes, and you know, this could take anywhere between maybe 8 minutes up to 45 to an hour, depending on how fast the micro SD card is that you have. So now at this point, we're just going to come up here to where it says close. We're going to click on that. We're going to close out again, and we are going to we're going to click on home. We're going to click where it says reboot, and we're going to reboot to RCM, which is that middle option there. So we'll click on that. It's going to reboot, but essentially it just takes it right back into RCM mode. We still have our jig installed. We're going to take the SD card out once again. I know you guys are loving this. So pull the SD card out, put the SD card back into the PC, and you'll have a secondary backup file. Take that backup file, put it with the other one. For me personally, I'm just taking it and I'm just deleting it because, like I said, I already have one backed up and I have it scattered throughout multiple hard drives and in different locations and on different computers, for just in case. Like I said, all what we're doing right now is a just in case your switch bricks. This is all a safety precaution. It's all for you to be able to gain your switch back if it turns into a potato. So hop back over to the PC. We'll take a look really quick and I'll show you guys the next step. Back over at the PC again, like I said, you'll have another backup folder. For me, I'm just deleting it because I already have one backed up. So deleting that folder. Now we are going to eject it once again, put it back into the switch, and we're moving on to the backing up our product keys. So I will show you guys that here in just 1 second. Okay, so still over here at the PC side, what we're going to do is we're actually going to change payloads that we're injecting. And we are going to, instead of using the Hecate one, we're actually going to pick the lockpick. And when we click inject payload, it's actually going to prompt us with, would we like to smash the stack again? So essentially how this works is there's a stack within Nintendo's security and everything else. And what you're doing is you're smashing the stack and submitting a payload through, and that payload is able to get behind it and run. So we're going to click inject payload, and it's going to say that there's already one injected. Are you sure you want to overwrite the stack again? At this point, we are going to say yes, and I'm going to switch over to the switch cam so you guys are able to see what happens the second you hit yes to overwrite the stack. And now your switch should look like this. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to turn it sideways, and I'm going to try to get this to actually focus for you guys so you can see it. And what you're going to do is you're going to use the volume up and down keys to go up and down. And the power button is essentially going to be your A button. So I'm going to try to get it, like I said, to where you can actually see it. But what we're going to want to do after we've done the injecting of the lockpick payload, we're going to want to go up here to this very top one. It'll automatically be on it, and you're just going to want to hit the power button to select. It's going to say dump from Sysnand. So wait for that to happen. It dumps, does its nice little thing. You guys should see something like that, and it will say press a button to return to the menu. So you just press any button, and at this point what we want to do is go all the way down to where it says power off, and hit the power button to turn the switch completely off. Now we are going to, again, you guys guessed it, take the SD card out, put it in the PC, and copy the folder over. So now you guys should have inside of your switch folder, right? So you'll have this this nice little folder right here, switch. You'll click on that. You'll have this one called prod.keys. This is going to be the one that you're going to want to back up. So you'll put it with the other backups that you had. Don't put it in the same folder as the one that's titled backup, but put it with those backup folders. I'm not going to delete it or anything like that. I'm just going to leave it there. And now we actually get to install our first, little bit of custom firmware. All right, guys. So now we've got all of that done. Now, the last thing that essentially we need to do is install our custom firmware, which is going to be as simple as doing everything from the RCM side of the switch itself. So by this point, you guys should kind of have somewhat of an idea of how to get into RCM and how to inject a payload properly. So we're going to eject our SD card. Go ahead and take it out. We're putting it back in our switch, and we're taking Tegra here, and we're going to load back up that Hecate bin file. And that's what we're going to use to launch back in and install our MMC, which is basically kind of think of it as a emulated version of the switch software. So it doesn't ban your switch, it would like possibly ban that. So it's kind of a precautionary thing. So we'll switch over to the switch, and I'll show you guys, what it looks like, how to do it, and after that you guys will be set, good to go, and up and running. So now we're going to, now that we're over at our switch view, we need to go back into RCM mode, make sure our jig is installed, which it is. Hold our volume up, hit the power button. You should see Tegra. Again, making sure your switch is plugged into your PC. Tegra should say RCM OK. We'll just quickly click inject payload, which we are injecting the Hecate one once again, not the lockpick. Not too worried about date and time. So then this one's going to be, pretty simple. We're just going to go to tools, and again, I'll try to get this to where you guys are able to see it. Sometimes the phone likes to focus, sometimes it doesn't. I'll also leave a written guide down below in the description, so if you guys want to follow along with that, you're more than welcome to. But I'll try to do the best that I can to show everything. And we're just going to click on Partition SD Card. You should get something like this that pops up. If you do, it's fine. You're perfectly fine. Just hit OK. And now it's going to pretty much give you how you want to partition it out. We want to slide this to, I'm trying to actually be able to see, where's it at? There. So we want it to say 29 full. So the MMC raw needs 29 gigs of storage on the SD card partition. This is why I said more than 64 gigs. So it's going to need quite a bit. So at this point, we've got that. We can just click on next step, which again, I'm kind of doing all of this through a camera and everything else. So I'm trying to do the best that I can to look at what I'm doing. And then we just hit start and wait for that to finish. All right, now that partition manager's done, we just click on OK. We can go click close. We can go back to the home menu, click where it says MMC, up here where it says create. At this point, we want to click on the SD partition, click on part 1, and wait for it to install. And there we go, guys. All done. So 7 minutes and 42 seconds is how long that took, at least for me. Like I said, times vary based off what micro SD cards you have, and essentially how fast your switch feels like going. So at this point, we are completely done. We just come up, we hit close, we come over here to where it says launch, and you should have a few different versions here, but the one we want is the one that says CFW open parentheses MUMMC close parentheses. We'll click on that. It's going to show the Hecate IPL. It's going to show atmosphere, and then it's going to boot into the actual Nintendo logo software itself. I will show you if you guys want to know if you've done it right or not. So now that we have loaded in, we're simply going to come down here to where it says system settings. We're going to click on that. We don't need the jig in here anymore, so we can go ahead and take that out. And I can actually put on my Joy-Con, which is going to make this so much easier for me to hold. We can come down here to where it says system. So if you look right there at the end of where it says the current version, if you guys see that E, that means you're now in the emulated. You'll see I believe it's an AMS M.18.1 line E. That now means you guys are in custom firmware. So, and to actually get to the Homebrew Store, if you go to any of the apps that you have downloaded, for me, I'm just going to use Hulu. If you hold R, right? You hold R, you click on it, and there you go. You're in. So now this is going to give you a little bit of like some starting homebrew that you can use and that you can go through and everything else. And if you want to just add homebrew, all you got to do is either FTP your system or take the SD card out, plug it back into your computer, and drag and drop whatever homebrew you want onto it. Now you are going to have to go through the entire like RCM process where you put the jig in, you go into RCM mode and inject the payload, and then click launch and launch the custom firmware. You'll have to do that every single time you power the system off. If you put it in sleep mode, or if it's just sitting on the dock and it's still running and everything else, you're fine. You don't have to do it again. But if you power the system off, you have to redo it in terms of injecting the payload, clicking launch, and then launching the custom firmware. You don't have to redo this entire video. So there you go, guys. I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. If your Switch is now up and running with its own custom firmware, I'd appreciate if you guys give this video a thumbs up. If you guys enjoy stuff like this, consider hitting the subscribe button. I do attempt to put out jailbreaks and things like that as I come across them, as I'm able to do them, as well as if you enjoy mystery box openings in Pokemon TCG and stuff like that, consider subscribing for that as well. I attempt to put out as much of that as possible because that's one of my biggest hobbies. But other than that, guys, thank you all so much for hanging out, staying tuned until the end of the video. I appreciate every single one of y'all. Love you all to death, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care.